You have spent decades perfecting the art of being the background character in your own life. But what happens when the stage lights finally go out? When you strip away the title of selfless matriarch and habitual caregiver, the silence that remains is terrifyingly loud, and most women are not prepared for it. They have spent so long filling that silence with other people's needs, with schedules and meals and emotional crises that were never theirs to carry, that when the silence finally arrives, they do not know what to do with it. They do not know who is in it. It is time to meet the stranger who has been living under your skin, waiting for permission to exist without apology. The woman who was trained to disappear. From the time we were small, we were taught that the highest expression of womanhood was the giving of ourselves away, not partially, fully, completely. The good woman was the one who put everyone else first and made it look effortless. The one who remembered everyone's preferences and managed everyone's feelings and smoothed every difficulty before it had the chance to become a crisis. She was not thanked for it, particularly. It was simply expected. It was simply what she was. That conditioning runs so deep that most of us do not even experience it as conditioning. We experience it as personality. We believe we are naturally giving, naturally selfless, naturally oriented toward the needs of others, as though this were an innate quality we were born with, rather than a role we were shaped into so thoroughly that it became indistinguishable from identity. The selfless matriarch is a romantic figure in our culture. She is the heart of the family, the one who holds everything together, the woman whose love is so complete that it asks nothing in return. We celebrate her. We eulogize her. We hold her up as the model of what a good woman looks like. What we do not talk about is the cost, the emotional burnout that accumulates across decades of putting yourself last, the slow erosion of personality that happens when your own preferences, your own desires, your own interior life are perpetually deferred in favor of what the family needs right now. The gradual disappearance of the person who existed before the roles took over, the woman who wanted things, who had opinions, who occupied space in her own life without constantly measuring that space against what everyone else required. When the domestic stage takes priority for long enough, you stop being a character in your own story. You become the setting, the background, the woman who makes everything possible for everyone else while her own narrative quietly goes unwritten. The quiet resentment that builds from that is real. It does not always announce itself loudly. It seeps. It shows up as exhaustion that rest does not fix, as a flatness you cannot explain, as a sudden, surprising grief at small moments, a song, a conversation, a glimpse of someone living freely that catches you off guard because you did not know the grief was there. When the noise stops and you do not know who is there, and then one day the stage goes quiet, the children leave, or the caretaking demands finally ease, or the marriage ends, or the career closes, or the structure that held all the roles in place simply stops requiring you in the same way. And the silence arrives. It is jarring in a way that is very difficult to describe to someone who has not experienced it. You have spent years, in many cases decades, defined entirely by what you were doing for other people. Your schedule was their schedule. Your energy was their energy. Your identity was wrapped so completely in the function of caretaker, mother, wife, manager of domestic life, that when the function is no longer required at the same intensity, you do not know what is left. Most women are not prepared for this moment. They expect to feel relief. Sometimes they do, briefly. But beneath the relief, if they are honest, is something more unsettling. A question they cannot answer. Who am I? Outside of what I do for everyone else. And the terrifying part is not that the question is hard. The terrifying part is that they reach for an answer and find that they genuinely do not know. The emptiness that shows up in that silence is not a flaw. It is not evidence that you wasted your life or that the years spent caring for others were meaningless. It is simply the natural consequence of a life in which your own identity was never given the space to develop independently of your roles. You were so busy being needed that you never fully became. The necessity now is to sit with that discomfort rather than immediately filling it. The instinct will be to find something new to manage, someone new to take care of, a new external structure to pour yourself into. Resist that instinct. The silence is not empty. It is full of the person who has been waiting, but she will not come forward until you stop drowning her out. The pause before you act. Here is something I want you to notice. The next time you want to do something small, even buy something for yourself, change your plans. Spend a Saturday afternoon in a way that serves no one but you. Notice what happens in the moment before you do it. Most women, if they are honest, will notice a pause, a slight internal check, an almost imperceptible scan of the environment. Is this okay? Will this upset someone? Do I have permission for this? That pause is the habit of permission. It is so deeply ingrained that we do not even experience it as seeking approval. It feels like consideration. It feels like conscientiousness. But what it actually is, underneath the socially acceptable framing, is a refusal to trust our own judgment without external validation. A belief held somewhere below conscious thought that our own needs and desires are not quite legitimate until someone else confirms them. Dismantling this habit is not dramatic. It does not require a grand declaration of independence. It requires noticing the pause every time and choosing not to act on it. Choosing to proceed on your own authority. Not recklessly, not without regard for the people you love, but without the compulsive need to check first, to justify, to make sure everyone is comfortable with your choice before you are allowed to make it. The friction this creates is real. When a woman who has spent years as a secondary character begins to exercise genuine agency to make decisions without consulting the room, to set limits that are firm rather than negotiable, to take up space in her own life without apologizing for it. The people around her often do not know what to do. They are accustomed to a particular version of you, a version that accommodated, deferred, adjusted. The new version unsettles them. That unsettlement is not your problem to solve. It is theirs to adjust to. Your job is not to manage their discomfort with your becoming. Your job is to develop the internal compass, private, unedited, no longer requiring outside approval that tells you what you actually want, and trust that wanting it is enough. Building a life that is actually yours. There is a difference between self-care, as we commonly talk about it, and the radical act of building a life that is centered around your own intellectual and creative desires. Self-care, in the popular sense, is the maintenance of the existing self. The bath, the walk, the rest, the things that restore you enough to continue as you were. These are not unimportant, but they are not the same as autonomy. Autonomy is not maintenance, it is construction. It is the active, deliberate building of a life that reflects who you actually are, your curiosities, your ambitions, your aesthetic sensibility, the things that make you feel most fully yourself, rather than a life shaped primarily by what you were required to be for everyone else. In 2026, there has never been more infrastructure for this. Women in their 60s and beyond are launching businesses, publishing books, building audiences, traveling alone, returning to education, creating art, forming communities around shared intellectual passions. The old story that this stage of life is a narrowing, a winding down, a gradual retreat from the world is being dismantled in real time by women who decided that the second half of their lives was going to be lived on their own terms. The architecture of autonomy is built one choice at a time. What do you want to learn? What do you want to make? Where do you want to go? Not because anyone needs you there, but because you want to be there. These are not frivolous questions. They are the foundation questions, the questions that build a self. And here is what the research consistently shows. When women prioritize their own growth and fulfillment, the relationships around them do not suffer. They improve, because a woman who is genuinely alive, curious, engaged, purposeful, present, brings something real to her relationships. Not duty, not obligation, authentic presence. And authentic presence is what the people who love you actually need from you, whether they know how to ask for it or not. The woman who is always the lead, you are not a supporting character. You have never been a supporting character. You were cast in that role by a culture that needed someone to play it, and you played it with extraordinary dedication, often at great personal cost. But the casting was not fate, and the role was not who you are. The journey from supporting role to lead is not a rejection of everything that came before. The years of care, the relationships built, the people raised and tended and loved, these are not things to disown. They are part of you, but they are not all of you. And the task now is to integrate the full person, the one who gave, yes, and also the one who wanted, who wondered, who had a self that was never entirely poured into the service of others, even when it felt that way. Your needs are not a burden. They are the foundation. Not the foundation of a selfish life, the foundation of an honest one. A life in which you are present because you choose to be, not because you are afraid of what happens if you are not. A life in which you give from abundance rather than from depletion. A life in which the people around you encounter the real you, complicated, particular, fully formed, rather than the managed version you have been performing for decades. The unedited self is not a source of guilt. She is a source of power, of renewed purpose, of the specific kind of authority that only comes from a woman who has stopped seeking permission and started trusting her own knowledge of what her life should look like. The stage is yours. It has always been yours. You simply forgot for a very long time that you were allowed to stand at the center of it. Step into the light. Leave the invisible skin of sacrifice behind. The stranger under your skin has been waiting long enough. If this reached something in you that has been waiting to be reached, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And if you are not yet on this porch, subscribe, because this is exactly the conversation we are here to have. I am Patricia, and I will see you next week.